sugar tag in Romania, in La Dory place, and this jacuzzi is waiting for me after I was dancing to live Romanian music with the violin and a drum and the keyboard and the traditional Romanian clothing, and they taught me traditional Romanian dance, so you can watch it in the previous live. And now I will continue on doing the stretching, the night stretching. I will continue on reading the book, 1984. It's waiting for us. I stopped to go dancing before. And yes, let's continue. I will put my bathing suit. Maybe I will stretch a little bit more outside. Okay. So, yes. Okay. The sound is a lot of rain here in Romania. I don't know why it's like this, but the water is still there. No, it's here. Wait for me. This is for after. What do you think? Should I just stretch or also read 1984? I think I will do both at the same time. I don't understand. Yes, it's the best live. How do you see lives? I really don't know. How do you get to the lives? How are you doing, girl? Okay. I take you here with me, and we will do it. Okay. Of an accident. Everyone saw it. But this was nice, right? Nothing happened really. I was all good. Jacuzzi. Wow. I got injured in my pinky. Wow. How did it happen? Did you see this? I don't feel my pinky from the inside. Ow. Okay. What can I do? Sometimes there are mistakes. I think I need to put it a bit down. Thank you. Yes. It's well to have pain. It's okay to have pain, yes. don't feel anything, you know. So let's do some stretching and then we'll need a book. Let nothing moves. What's my plan? My plan is to stretch and to read 1984. What is this? One star, hi, hello. I don't know if this song I danced before Romanian traditional dance with traditional clothing. You can see in the live that I did before. And the world. Meglio, ok, buonasera, Stefano. Okay, so still in shock from this morning. Okay, but it will be okay, right? You see the injury here? Yes, what do you think? What should I do with it? Should I go to the hospital? Okay. So, actually, now I'm regretting putting cold water in the jacuzzi. It's turning red. What? And now it's a bit not so hot, but it's okay. It's okay. I will go inside. You know what? Let's continue on reading. Where were I? From this falling, it got wet, my book. So not only I enjoyed, but also the book. It's good that I have this too. Okay. So I read to you 1984. We were in the middle, and I will continue. Can you hear me? Oh, it's got a bit wet. Okay. So let's continue. Where were I? Comrades, cried its eager youthful voice. Attention, comrades. We have glorious news for you. We have won the battle for production. Returns now completed of the output of all classes of consumption goods show that the standard of living has risen by no less than 20% over the past year. All over Oceania this morning there were irrepressible spontaneous demonstrations when workers marched out of factories and offices and paraded through the streets with banners voicing their gratitude to Big Brother for the new happy life, which his wise leadership has bestowed upon us. Here are some of the completed figures. Flagstaffs. The phrase, our new happy life, recurred several times. It has been a favorite of late with the Ministry of Plenty. Parsons, his attention caught by the trumpet call, sat listening with a sort of gaping solemnity, a sort of edified boredom. He could not follow the figures, but he was aware that they were in some way a cause for satisfaction. He had lugged out a huge and filthy pipe, which was already half full of charred tobacco. With the tobacco ration at 100 grams a week, it was seldom possible to fill a pipe to the top. Winston was smoking a Victory cigarette, which he held carefully horizontally. The new ration did not start till tomorrow, and he had only 4 cigarettes left. For the moment he had shut his ears to the remoter noises and was listening to the stuff that steamed out of the telescreen. It appeared that there had ever been demonstration to thank Big Brother for raising the chocolate ration to 20 grams a week. And only yesterday, he reflected, it had been announced that the ration was to be reduced to 20 grams a week. Was it possible that they could swallow that after only 24 hours? Yes, they swallowed it. Parson swallowed it easily, with the stupidity of an animal. The eyeless creature, as the other table swallowed it fanatically, passionately, with a furious desire to track down, denounce, and vaporize anyone who should suggest that last week the ration had been 30 grams. Seemed, too, in some more complex way, involving double thing, seems swallowed it. Was he then alone in the possession of the memory? The fabulous statistics continued to pour out of the telescreen. As compared with last year, there was more food, more clothes, more houses, more furniture, more cooking pots, more fuel, more ships, more helicopters, more books, more babies, more everything except disease, crime, and insanity. Year by year and minute by minute, everybody and everything was whizzing rapidly upwards. As Sim had done earlier, Winston had taken up his spoon and was dabbling in the pale-colored gravy that dribbled across the table, drawing a long stem of it out into a pattern. He meditated resentfully on the physical texture of life. Had it always been like this? Had food always tasted like this? He looked round the canteen. A long ceiling bed crowded room, its walls gloomy from the contact of innumerable bodies, battered metal tables and chairs placed so close together that you stand with elbows touching, bent spoons, dented trays, coarse white mugs, all surfaces greasy, grinding every crack, and a sourish composite smell of bad gin and bad coffee and metallic stew and dirty clothes. Always in your stomach and in your skin there was a sort of protest, a feeling that you had been cheated of something that you had a right to. It was true that he had no memories of anything greatly different. In any time that he could currently remember, there had never been quite enough to eat. One had never had socks or underclothes that were not full of holes. Furniture had always been battered and rickety. Rooms underheated. Tube trains crowded. Houses falling to pieces. Bright dark colored. Tea a rarity. Coffee filthy tasting. Cigarettes insufficient. Nothing cheap. And plentiful. Except synthetic gin. And though, of course, it grew worse as one's body aged, was it not a sign that this was not the natural order of things? If one's heart sickened at the discomfort and dirt and scarcity, the interminable winters, the stickiness of one's socks, the lifts that never worked, the cold water, the gritty soap, the cigarettes that came to pieces, the food with its strange evil taste. Why should one feel it to be intolerable unless one had some kind of ancestral memory that things had once been different? He looked round the canteen again. Nearly everyone was ugly, and would still have been ugly even if dressed otherwise than in the uniform blue overalls. On the far side of the room, sitting at the table alone, a small, curiously beetle-like man was drinking a cup of coffee. His little eyes darting suspicious glances from side to side. How easy it was, thought Winston, if you did not look about you, to believe that the physical type set up by the party as an ideal, tall, muscular youths and deep-bosomed maidens, blonde-haired, vital, sunburned, carefree, existed and even predominated. Actually, so far as he could judge, the majority of people in Airstrip 1 were small, dark, and ill-favored. It was curious how that beetle-like type proliferated in the ministries. Little dumpy men, growing stoned very early in life, with short legs, swift scuttling movements, and fat, inscrutable faces with very small eyes. It was the type that seemed to flourished best under the dominion of the party. The announcement from the Ministry of Plenty ended on another trumpet call and gave way to tiny music. Parsons, stirred to vogue enthusiasm by the bombardment of figures, took his pipe out of his mouth. The Ministry of Plenty certainly done a good job this year, he said with a knowing shake of his head. By the way, Smith, old boy, I suppose you haven't brought any razor blades you can let me have. Not one, said Winston. I've been using the same blade for 6 weeks myself. Oh, well, just thought I'd ask you, old boy. Sorry, said Winston. The quacking voice from the next table, temporarily silent during the ministry's announcement, had started up again, as loud as ever. For some reason, Winston suddenly found himself thinking of Mrs. Parson, with her wispy hair and the dust in the creases of her face. Within 2 years, those children would be denouncing her to be the thought police. Mrs. Parsons would be vaporized. Senior would be vaporized. Winston would be vaporized. O'Brien would be vaporized. Parsons, on the other hand, would never be vaporized. The eyeless creature with the quacking voice would never be vaporized. The little beetle-like man who scuttles so nimbly through the labyrinthine corridors of ministries, they too would never be vaporized. And the girl with the dark hair, the girl from the fiction department, she would never be vaporized either. It seemed to him that he knew instinctively who would survive and who would perish. Though just what it was that made for survival, it was not easy to say. At this moment, he was dragged out of his reverie with a violent jerk. The girl at the next table had turned partly round and was looking at him. It was the girl with dark hair. She was looking at him in a sidelong way, but with curious intensity. The instant she caught his eye, she looked away again. The sweat started out on Winston's backbone. A horrible pang of terror went through him. It was gone almost at once, but it left a sort of nagging uneasiness behind. Why was she watching him? Why did she keep following him about? Unfortunately, he could not remember whether she had already been at the table when he arrived or had come there afterwards. But yesterday, at any rate, during the 2 minutes hate, she had sat immediately behind him when there was no apparent need to do so. Quite likely, her real object had been to listen to him and make sure whether he was shouting loudly enough. His earlier thought returned to him. Probably she was not actually a member of the thought police, but then it was precisely the amateur spy who was the greatest danger of all. He did not know how long she had been looking at him, but perhaps for as much as 5 minutes, and it was possible that his features had not been perfectly under control. It was terribly dangerous to let your thoughts wander when you were in any public place or within range of a telescope. The smallest thing could give you away. A nervous tic, an unconscious look of anxiety, a habit of muttering to yourself, everything that carried with it the suggestion of abnormality, of having something to hide. In any case, to wear an improper expression on your face, to look incredulous when a victory was announced, for example, was itself a punishable offense. There was even a word for it in newspeak. Face crime, it was called. The girl had turned her back on him again. Perhaps, after all, she was not really following him about. Perhaps it was coincidence that she had sat so close to him 2 days running. His cigarette had gone out, and he laid it carefully on the edge of the table. He would finish smoking it after work, if he could keep the tobacco in it. Quite likely, the person at the next table was a spy of the thought police, and quite likely he would be in the cellars of the Ministry of Law within 3 days. But a cigarette must not be wasted. Steen had folded up his strip paper and stowed it away in his pocket. Parsons had begun talking again. "Did I ever told you, old boy," he said, chuckling round the stem of his pipe, "about the time when those 2 nippers of mine set fire to the old market woman's skirt because they saw her wrapping up soup and sausages in a poster of BB? Sneaked up behind her and set fire to it with a box of matches. Burned her quite badly, I believe. Little beggars, huh? But keen as mustard. That's a first-rate training they give them in spies nowadays. And nowadays better in my day even. What do you think the latest thing they've served them out with? Ear trumpets for listening to keyboards. My little girl brought one home the other night, tried it out on our sitting room door, and reckoned she could hear twice as much as with ear to the hole. Of course, it's only a toy, mind you. Still, it gives them the right idea, huh? At this moment, the telescreen let out a piercing whistle. It was the signal to return to work. All 3 men sprang to their feet to join in the struggle around the lifts, and the remaining tobacco fell out of Winston's cigarettes. Okay, we finished chapter 5. Now we go to chapter 6. Are you ready? Let's go. So, Finn outside it's cold, inside it's warmish, and soon it will be too cold to stay and I will go. So hang on, still warm here, I will put my hands here. Okay. Winston was writing in his diary. It was 3 years ago. It was on a dark evening in a narrow side street near one of the big railway stations. She was standing near a doorway in the wall under a street lamp that hardly gave any light. She had a young face painted very thick. It was really the paint that appealed to me, the weakness of it, the whiteness of it, like a mask, and the bright red lips. Party women never paint their faces. There was nobody else in the streets, and no telescreens. She said $2. For the moment it was too difficult to go on. He shut his eyes and pressed his fingers against them, trying to squeeze out the vision that kept recurring. He had an almost overwhelming temptation to shout a string of filthy words at the top of his voice, or to bang his head against the wall, to kick over the table and hurl the ink pots through the window, to do any violent or noisy or painful thing that might black out the memory that was tormenting him. Your worst enemy, he reflected, was your own nerve system. At any moment, the tension inside you was liable to translate itself into some visible symptom. He thought of a man whom he had passed in the streets a few weeks back. A quite ordinary looking man, a party member, aged 35 or to 40, tallish and thin, carrying a briefcase. They were a few meters apart when the left side of the man's face was suddenly controlled by a sort of spasm. It happened again just as they were passing one another. It was only a twitch, a quiver, rapid as the clicking of the camera shutter, but obviously habitual. He remembered thinking at the time, that poor devil is done for. And what was frightening was that the action was quite possibly unconscious. The most deadly danger of all was talking in your sleep. There was no way of guarding against that, so far as he could see. He drew his breath and went on writing. I went with her through the doorway and across a backyard into a basement kitchen. There was a bed against the wall and a lamp on the table, turned down very low. His teeth were set on edge. He would have liked to speak simultaneously with the woman in the basement kitchen. He thought of Catherine, his wife. Winston was married, had been married, at any rate. Probably he still was married. So far as he knew, his wife was not dead. He seemed to breathe again the warm, stuffy odor of the basement kitchen, an odor compounded of bugs and dirty clothes and villainous cheap scent, but nevertheless alluring, because no woman of the party ever used scent, or could be imagined as doing so. Only the pros used scent. In his mind, the smell of it was inextricably mixed up with fornication. What? So much rain? What's going on in Romania? Okay. And I don't know how long it's going to be. It's still warmish, but outside it's pretty cold, so let's see. When I will start feeling coldness, I will finish the light. So, let's continue. When we had gone with that woman, it had been his first lapse in 2 years of thereabouts. Consorting with prostitutes was forbidden, of course, but it was one of those rules which you could occasionally nerve yourself to break. It was dangerous, but it was not a life and death matter. To be caught with a prostitute might mean 5 years in a forced labor camp. Not more if you had committed no other offense. And it was easy enough provided that you could avoid being caught in the acts. The poorer quarters swarmed with women who were ready to sell themselves. Some could even be purchased for a bottle of gin, which the Poles were not supposed to drink. Tacitly, the party was even inclined to encourage prostitution as an outlet for instincts which could not be altogether suppressed. Mere debauchery did not matter very much, so long as it was furtive and joyless and only involved the women of a submerged and despised class. The unforgivable crime was promiscuity between party members, but though this was one of the crimes that the accused in the great purges invariably confessed to, it was difficult to imagine any such thing actually happening. Okay, now I'm getting a bit cold, but you know what? It's a short one, so I will finish it and that's it. The aim of the party was not merely to prevent men and women from forming loyalties which it might not be able to control. Its real undeclared purpose was to remove all pleasure from the sexual acts. Not love so much as eroticism was the enemy, inside marriages as well as outside it. All marriages between party members had to be approved by the committee appointed for the purpose. And though the principle was never clearly stated, permission was always refused if the couple concerned gave the impression of being physically attracted to one another. The only recognized purpose of the marriage was to beget children for the service of the parliament. Sexual intercourse was to be looked on as a slightly disgusting minor operation, like having an enema. This again was never put into plain words, but in an indirect way it was rubbed into every party member from childhood onwards. There were even organizations such as the Junior Anti-Sex League, which advocated complete celibacy for both sexes. All children were to be begotten by artificial insemination. Artsen, it was called in newspeak, and brought up in public institutions. This, Winston was aware, was not meant altogether seriously, but somehow it fitted in with the general ideology of the party. The party was trying to kill the sex instinct, or, if it could not be killed, then to disturb it and dirty it. He did not know why this was so, but it seemed natural that it should be so. And as far as the women were concerned, the party's efforts were largely successful. He thought again of Catherine. It must be 9, 10, nearly 11 years since they had parted. It was curious how seldom he thought of her. For days at a time, he was capable of forgetting that he had ever been married. They had only been together for about 15 months. The party did not permit divorce, but it rather encouraged separation in cases where there were no children. Catherine, who was a tall, fair-haired girl, very straight, with splendid movements. She had a bold, aquiline face, a face that one might have called noble until one discovered that there was, as nearly as possible, nothing behind it. Very early in her married life, he had decided, though perhaps it was only that he knew her more intimately than he knew most people, that she had, without exception, the most stupid, vulgar, empty mind that he had ever encountered. She had not a thought in her head that was not a slogan, and there was no imbecility, absolutely none, that she was not capable of swallowing in the party handed it out to her. The human soundtrack, he nicknamed her in his own mind. Yet he could have endured living with her if it had not been for just one thing: sex. As soon as he touched her, she seemed to wince and stiffen. To embrace her was like embracing a jointed wooden image. And what was strange was that even when she was clasping him against her, he had the feeling that she was simultaneously pushing him away with all her strength. The rigidity of her muscles managed to convey that impression. She would lie there with shut eyes, neither resisting nor cooperating, but submitting. It was extraordinarily embarrassing, and, after a while, horrible. But even then, he could have borne living with her if it had been agreed that they should remain celibate. But curiously enough, it was Catherine who refused this. They must, she said, produce a child if they could. So the performance continued to happen once a week, quite regularly. whenever it was not impossible. She even used to remind him of it in the morning as something which had to be done that evening and which must not be forgotten. She had two names for it. One was making a baby, and the other was our duty to the party. Yes, she had actually used that phrase. Quite soon, he grew to have a feeling of positive dread when the appointed day came round. But luckily, no child appeared, and in the end, she agreed to give up trying, and soon afterwards, they parted. Winston sighed inaudibly. He picked up his pen again and wrote. She threw herself down on the bed and at once, without any kind of preliminary, in the most horrible way you can imagine, pulled up her skirts. He saw himself standing there in the dim lamplights, with the smell of bugs and cheap sand in his nostrils, and in his heart a feeling of defeat and resentment, which even at that moment was mixed up with the thought of Catherine's white body, frozen forever by the hypnotic power of the party. Why did it always have to be like this? Why could he not have a woman of his own instead of these filthy scuffles in intervals of years? But the real love affair was an almost unthinkable event. The women of the party were all alike. Chastity was deep ingrained in them as party loyalty. By careful early conditioning, by games and cold water, by the rubbish that was dimmed into them at school and in the spies and the youth league, by lectures, parades, songs, slogans, and martial music, the natural feeling had been driven out of them. His reason told him that there must be exceptions, but his head did not believe it. They were all impregnable, as the party intended that they should be. And what he wanted, more even than to be loved, was to break down the wall of virtue, even if it were only once in his whole life. The sexual act successfully performed was rebellion. Desire was touch crime. Desire was thought crime. Even to have awakened Catherine, if he could ever achieve it, would have been like a seduction, although she was his wife. But the rest of the story had got to be written down. He wrote, I turned up the lamp when I saw her in the lights. After the darkness, the feeble light of the paraffin lamp had seemed very bright. For the first time he could see the woman properly. He had taken a step towards her and then halted, full of lust and terror. He was painfully conscious of the risk he had taken in coming here. It was perfectly possible that the patrols would catch him on the way out. For that matter, they might be waiting outside the door at this moment. If you went away without even doing what you had come here to do. It had got to be written down. It had got to be confessed. What he had suddenly seen in the lamplight was that the woman was old. The paint was plastered too thick on her face, and that it looked as though it might crack like a cardboard mask. There were streaks of white in her hair, but the truly dreadful detail was that her mouth had fallen a little open, revealing nothing except a cavernous blackness. She had no teeth at all. He wrote horribly in scrubbing handwriting. When I saw her in the light, she was quite an old woman, 50 years old at least, but I went ahead and did it just the same. He pressed his fingers against the eyelids again. He had written it down fast, but it made no difference. The therapy had not worked. The urge to shout filthy words at the top of his voice was as strong as ever. Yeah, and here chapter 6 came to its end, and tomorrow probably I will continue with chapter 7. So don't forget to subscribe with the bell so you will not miss it, and you can watch other lives if you didn't hear the beginning of the book. And the second part is on Instagram, because when I was in Ukraine I couldn't do lives. Like I did some lives there, but then suddenly I couldn't do, and I went to do some lives on Instagram, even though I was not there for a while. And I will go inside. It's still warm, but not enough. Outside. I want to do knees. And the rain doesn't stop. But I will finish now the live, and I will continue tomorrow. And yes, I know that you're just now starting to write. Maybe if you will share it, I will have more likes and more views. I would stay for a bit longer to do night stretching in the jacuzzi, but maybe not. Depends on you. It's really hot in here. But this is stretching and go to the shower and to read my other book. Hopefully, because I always go into Facebook and just roll, write my empty comments. Okay, but still keep on scrolling, and I don't want to do it. And I want to read, I want to stretch and to sleep. But unfortunately, because of my pain, that some of you know maybe that I have from a motorbike accident, it's hard for me to sleep until I'm totally done. So I'm trying to, make myself tired. Let's do some stretching. So enough for today. Maybe after the 10 like, I will go. I will not do that. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching. My finger is good. It's okay. I will survive. And don't forget to subscribe with the bell. It's Ravit Levi Meditation Dance, and the YouTube is divided into genres and more. On the playlist you can go to your favorite genre, just dance, fly, and all kinds of things. Today I taught languages. If you want to learn some languages, there is also a playlist for this. And you have also the Facebook, Ravit Levi Meditation Dance, and also the Instagram and TikTok, Ravit.mb, Raveit.mb. I will go see how I will do it slowly. Why? Okay. So slowly, let's now do this. Okay. And the rain doesn't stop. It stopped in the night. Continue on. I hope I will not hold this time. I will come here. So, no more jacuzzi for today. I know I'm quite addicted. But addicted to jacuzzi. I can jacuzzi every day, all day long. So, until next time. Are we ready to close it? Let's take this away. Let's put this and this. Okay. Yes. Look. I did it. Okay. Whatsoever. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and hope that it was interesting for you. And this is the sound of the rain here. So let's take things forward. Turn off the lights and there we go. Opa. So ciao ciao, see you. Ooh la la. Okay, I will cover the phone so it will not be wet. Bye.